a charm. It's a chant I have whispered all these years to myself. Not because I believed it, but because I always wanted to be one. But while I was finding my recipe of success, I found that perfection was never mine. Well, does this sound familiar? It might, because you have also whispered this too, thinking that if you said this enough times, it would become true. This is the eternal saga of perfection, chasing every single image, getting into every role, and ticking off the check boxes of the to-do list just to find that perfection was never mine. For me, it started from home. All these years, I have dreamt and have never missed an opportunity to be the kind of daughter my mother always dreamt of. Perfect. And when she said perfect, in real sense, I have analyzed what it meant. It actually meant emotionless. Someone who doesn't get sad over bad grades and dared off never to be happy over the good ones because someone else scored higher. She always wanted someone who has robotic abilities, means to work efficiently, tirelessly, throughout the day without any sleep during the afternoon hours. And clearly, I always failed to do that. Finally, I was thought to be a calculator, to perform the most complex mathematical calculations perfectly in pearl-like handwriting with the right-hand side margin drawn over my math notebook. And I was expected to be a flexible all-rounder, with which she meant that I should be able to handle situations like falling off her favorite crockery like a ninja, and I should be a versatile player in all the possible sports. As I searched for my recipe of success, I found that every single thing I did was riddled with flaws. Yet, the chance was that everything I did imperfectly left a perfectly lasting impact on me. Well, does this sound ironic? It does to me as well. Maybe because I had put so much effort in doing all that thing. But what only matters is I embraced my imperfection. I worked with flaws and got it. Let me take you back to high school days. So it was almost December end and Dad called up to me and said, "Hey, we are planning something fun this New Year's." And with a childish heart and a girlish brain, I dreamt of Paris, Disneyland, me getting on and off rides, and what not. Well, I felt unstoppable. Just like a Porsche with no brakes, I felt invincible. And what else did I not feel? Well, but his idea of fun was a little different this time. It was a hackathon. A hackathon? I had never heard of any such thing before. And for someone like me who could barely spell HTML, yet alone lose it, it was just greater than a nightmare for me. As I stepped into the platform, I saw that it was filled with tech wheezies. Imagine this. 2 days, hundreds of people, all tech geniuses, and me. Someone who had negligible coding experience as was wandering there clueless. Well, then I noticed that some workshops were going there. I am a fun-loving person, and attending some workshops was definitely not my New Year's plan. But I decided that learning something would definitely be better than faking the little knowledge that I had with me. And then I decided to join the workshops. Well, here's the fun part. 1 hour before the midnight crashed, the organizers threw up a challenge to break a chatbot. And my first thoughts were, well, this isn't definitely meant for me. I should better be going and sleeping. But as I looked around, I saw that there were more misfits like me, imperfect people who were like vagabonds and wandering there. All of us imperfect people pooled up, teamed up, and pulled out every single scrap of HTML and Python that we had just learned. And we clicked enter. Guess what? The chat bot was perfectly disrupted. It was the most imperfect group in the whole cohort to perfectly break the chatbot's code and get a winning position there. Well, it was quite an achievement. That night taught me something that I'll never forget. You don't have to be ready to start. You don't have to have perfect guiding principles to start. All it takes is a spark of willingness and nothing else. Well, let's get afar from my story for a while and let's talk about, I think, someone whom all of us know. Steve Jobs. Well, in an era where millions of people spend dollars on purchasing the new versions of iPhones every year, we have always seen this personality, Steve Jobs, as someone who is super successful. As he made an empire-like company, Apple. Well, but less of us know about the secret behind it. Steve Jobs was fired off his own company, Apple. Well, doesn't that sound disgusting? I mean, imagine how imperfect, embarrassing, and sad it has been for him. But Steve Jobs once said that getting fired off Apple was one of the best things that could ever happen to him. When people asked why, he answered that he got a chance to reflect back. He got a chance to take a look at his imperfections. And that's when he started next and invested in Pixar. It was quite an achievement. His success didn't come from being flawless. It came from owning setbacks, learning from imperfections, and following only one single thing, which was creating something meaningful. Well, similar cases kept on happening with me. I have always struggled to make friends. 1, 2, none. Well, this has always been my friend list since my primary school. But 2024 brought something unexpected. So as usual, my father's holiday plans expanded, and as vacations shot off, he decided to send me to a science camp. Science, well, it sounded fun. Imagine 5 days at a university, real-life university professors, and a chance to live like an independent young lady, which I have always dreamt of without any cautions from my mother and father. I was thrilled until I got there. Just after the first lesson, I observed that people there were forming groups, chittering, chatting, discussing science, exploring campus, and in that space, I found myself to be isolated, to be confused, to be a little uncomfortable, but I managed. Well, let me tell you, getting confused is my superpower, and I have to get that untangled every single time I move forward. Because if I don't, one single rhyme chimes my mind all the time. And the rhyme is that it's confusion, pure delusion, no solution, just intrusion. Well, does the rhyme scheme sound familiar? It might. This is the English translation of the confusion monologue from Amir Khan's PK. I was so confused that instead of freezing, I decided to ask questions. I again and again raised my hands, asked questions, raised my hands, asked questions repeatedly because I thought the university professors were some of the well-trained and best kind of people who would help me get rid of my doubts. And to my surprise, those concepts have tied up so well in my brain that I don't think I'll ever forget them. Because sometimes while I used to study at school, those little things I take for granted and never paid attention to. Well, here's the fun part about the vulnerability. The homeliness that I possessed. I was grounded. I was not trying to impress someone, but I was only trying to get rid of my doubts. And that's where people got attracted towards me. And in that space, I managed to make friends. Actually, I made 5 friends, 3 of whom reached out to me. Well, it was such a victorious moment. Maybe the questions are the bridges we have been waiting to build all along. Our confusion might be our deepest secrets, but they are someone else's safe heaven, and we find the way to nurture it. Well, since we are talking about so much imperfection, we should definitely throw a light on a perfect entity. Let's talk about Sheldon Cooper from the Big Bang Theory. I think most of you have heard about his name. Sheldon was a kind of kid every parent could ever dream of. He had bathroom schedule. Every single minute of his day working on the grand unified field theory. And he was an all-rounder. All-rounder in terms of physics, maths, science, whatever. Question him and he knew the answer. But do you think he was the most perfect kind of person? Well, let me remind you, even in his adulthood, he asked his love interest, Amy, and his mother, Mary, to sing him, "Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur, happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr." Well, people like me always thought that he was dumb and made fun of him. He found joy in this little imperfect ritual. It soothed him and made him ready to make big scientific discoveries. It's those exact habits, the ones you are told were unnecessary or weird, that carry us through our hardest days. And our imperfections are what that make us perfect. Our imperfections make us unique. They make us us, and they make us more human. Every story that I have shared weaves around one single truth rolled around, that trusting your ideas even when they feel incomplete is what opens door. You don't have to be ready every time. All it takes is a spark of willingness. You just have to embrace your imperfections. Be comfortable with the way of life and be comfortable with your uniqueness and yourselves. The ideas don't have to be fully formed to be worth. Someone who has perfect ideas or perfect plan is not necessarily gonna succeed. The one who is gonna succeed is the one who trusted his imperfections, the one who had faith in himself. And the human life is fallible. Well, imperfections are what that changes every single time. When I started to teach STEM to underprivileged kids, I went there and I realized that a common pattern was being followed. Well, teens like me came there, shared some science, took a certificate and left. And I agree, yes, kids did have scientific knowledge. They knew science, they knew math, but they didn't have what they really wanted. And that was belief. Belief that they existed. Believe that every idea matters, and believe that no matter how imperfect you are, all it takes is you to stand and work towards your goals. When I gave them a stage to speak, I was intrigued to see the level of ideas, imaginations these kids possessed. And I happily gave them a suggestion to work towards it, and that was embracing your imperfections. As a young girl myself, with fun, with messy thoughts, and with scattered dreams, I too find myself sometimes pushed away in the society where ideas cling to just stereotypical thinking and adult-dominated visions. But it's really time when we give time to youth and let them embrace their imperfections. And that's when, with a handful of coding knowledge, a lot of ideas scattered in different directions, I started to find bloggery. And as a leader, I made sure that I pull off every single imperfect piece from all the corners of the world just to create one unique puzzle of my own to make this world a better place. World changes not because it found someone perfect, but it changes because some imperfect ideas cluttered together are acing perfection. Well, let me remind you, sometimes our deepest scars hold strength, truth, perseverance, and the grit. So let me remind you, you don't have to be flawless, but fearless. Thank you so much for listening to me.